The emergency alarms echoed through the Earth's defense. Command center, as Commander Park Jin-woo stared at the massive holographic display. Red warning lights bathed the room in an eerie glow, while dozens of officers worked frantically at their stations. The display showed empty space where the Confederation fleet had been just hours before. "Sir, we're receiving the final transmission from the Altarian command ship," Lieutenant Kim So-min announced, her hands trembling slightly as she worked the communications panel. Her usually calm voice carried a note of disbelief that made everyone in the room pause their work. The air shimmered as the hologram formed, revealing the tall, elegant figure of Ambassador Zethkal. His crystalline skin caught the light, and his large, multifaceted eyes seemed to look right through Jin-woo. For months, this being had been their ally, their guide into galactic civilization.
Oh.
He looked like a stranger delivering a death sentence. "Commander Park Jin-woo of Earth," the ambassador began, his voice carrying that musical quality that had once seemed beautiful but now sounded cold and distant. "The Confederation High Council has made a most difficult decision regarding the approaching Devourer threat." Jin-woo felt his stomach drop. He had been expecting reinforcements, additional weapons, maybe even evacuation ships for Earth's civilians. Not been expecting this tone, this formal distance from someone who had shared dinner at his table just weeks ago. "The Devourer swarm will reach your solar system in exactly 72 standard hours." Zethkal continued, consulting a device that floated near his elongated fingers. "Our military analysts have determined that your world's strategic sacrifice will provide the necessary time for our core systems to prepare adequate defenses." The words hit the command center like a physical blow. Several officers stopped working entirely, turning to stare at the hologram in shock. Dr. Lee Hijin, Earth's chief scientist and alien technology specialist, dropped the datapad she had been holding. The sound of it clattering to the floor seemed impossibly loud in the sudden silence. "You're abandoning us," Jin-woo said, his voice barely above a whisper. Then, louder, with growing anger, "You're actually abandoning us. After everything we've done, everything we've shared, all the resources we've provided to your war effort, your species is remarkably young and adaptable," the ambassador interrupted, as if discussing the weather rather than condemning an entire world to destruction. "If any race in the galaxy could survive what approaches, it would be humanity. Consider this your final examination for full Confederation membership." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Jin-woo stared at the empty space where the hologram had been, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. Around him, his officers sat frozen at their stations, coolly unable to comprehend their abandonment. Dr. Lee Hijin was the first to speak, her voice clinical and precise, despite the tremor in her hands. "Commander, they've shut down all our hyperspace communication arrays. The quantum entanglement links to our colony worlds have been severed. We can't contact anyone beyond this system." Through the massive transparent walls of the command center, they could see the night sky above Earth. What should have been empty space now crawled with activity as hundreds of alien ships gathered in formation. Every vessel in the Confederation fleet was preparing to leave, taking with them technologies that humanity had only begun to understand. Knowledge that could have saved their world. Ensign Choi Minho's voice cracked as he called out from the long-range sensor station. "Sir, I'm detecting massive gravitational anomalies at the edge of our solar system. The signatures match Confederation intelligence reports on Devourer approach patterns. They're already here." The main display shifted to show the outer reaches of their solar system. At first, there was nothing visible except the usual cosmic background, and like nightmares materializing from the void, the first Devourer ships began to appear. They were unlike anything in the Confederation fleeter, organic-looking vessels that seemed to pulse and breathe. Their dark holes, studded with what looked like technological parasites. Jin-woo watched as more and more of the bioships emerged from hyperspace. Each one was the size of a city, and there were dozens of them, with more appearing every minute. Their hulls seemed to shift and change, as if the ships themselves were alive and hungry. "All stations, battle alert," Jin-woo commanded, his training taking over even as his heart pounded with fear and rage. Signal every defense platform, every orbital station, every ship we have. Signal all planetary governors and military commanders. He paused, watching as another group of Confederation vessels vanished into hyperspace, leaving Earth's skies empty of allies. The weight of their situation settled on his shoulders like a crushing burden. They were alone, facing an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, armed with weapons that seemed pitifully inadequate against the approaching swarm. "Tell them we're on our own now," he finished quietly. Outside, Earth's orbital defense platforms began to power up their weapons, casting brief flashes of light against the darkness as humanity prepared to face the impossible alone. The sound of metal being shaped filled the air as General Yoon Taemin walked through what used to be Seoul's most expensive shopping district. Where designer stores and fancy restaurants once stood, massive machines now cut and welded alien metal day and night. The ground shook slightly with each heavy step of the construction robots that never stopped working. 5 long years had passed since the aliens left Earth to die. 5 years of fighting, learning, and changing in ways that no one could have imagined. Taemin's uniform was patched and worn, and a long scar ran down the left side of his face from a devourer attack 2 years ago. But he was alive and more. Importantly, he was winning. "General, you need to see this," called Chief Engineer Han Bora from across the factory floor. Her voice barely carried over the noise of the plasma cutters that worked without stopping. She was younger than Taemin, maybe 30 years old, but her hair had already turned gray from the stress of constant work and too little sleep. Bora led him through rows of half-built machines and stacks of strange dark metal that seemed to move slightly when no one was looking directly at it. The workers they passed looked tired but determined. Many had mechanical arms or legs to replace what they had lost in battles. Others had strange implants behind their ears that let them connect directly with the alien technology they were building. They stopped in front of a sleek fighter ship that made Taemin pause and stare. It was beautiful in a deadly way, like a shark or a hunting knife. The hull curved and flowed like something alive, but the weapons mounted on its wings were clearly human design, aggressive, and built for one purpose only. "This is our latest fighter," Biora said, running her hand along the smooth surface. "We call it the Reaper. It's built from captured devourer biometal, but everything else is our own design." Taemin walked around the ship slowly, taking in every detail. The metal seemed to respond to Bora's touch, becoming slightly warmer and changing color from dark gray to a deep blue. How is that possible? "I thought their technology only responded to their own kind." Biora smiled for the first time in months. "That's what we thought too, until Captain Jung Manesio figured out the secret. The Devourers control their ships through a kind of group mind. They all think together as one. But when a human pilot connects to their systems, something different happens." She showed him a helmet with dozens of thin wires coming out of it. "Human minds are different. We think as individuals, not as a group. When we connect to Devourer technology, our individual thoughts actually break their group control. We can take their ships and make them work for us instead." Taemin picked up the helmet and examined it carefully. It looked dangerous, with sharp metal contacts that would press directly against a pilot's skull. "And this works? Our people can actually fly their ships?" "Better than that," Biora said, her eyes lighting up with excitement. "We can fly them better than the Devourers can. Their group mind makes them predictable. They'll react the same way to the same situation, but humans, we're unpredictable. Think of crazy solutions that they never expect." Through the large windows of the factory, Taemin could see Earth's orbital shipyards in the distance. Dozens of new ships were being built, each one a hybrid of human engineering and captured alien technology. The ships looked mean and hungry, like metal predators waiting to hunt. The sight filled him with a mixture of pride and sadness. These ships were proof of human creativity and determination, but they were also proof of what the war had done to his people. Earth had become a world where children learned to take apart alien weapons before they learned to ride bicycles. Every city was now a fortress, Every citizen was a soldier. Communications Officer Park So-young approached them with a tablet in her hands. She moved quickly but carefully, the way everyone moved now, always ready for bad news or sudden attacks. General, we just received reports from the outer system. The Devourer fleet that was attacking the Titan mining station has pulled back. Our forces are pushing them out of the asteroid belt. Amin felt something he had almost forgotten. Hope. For the first time since the war began, humans were not just surviving, but actually winning battles. The aliens who had abandoned them had expected Earth to fall within months. Instead, humanity had learned to fight back using the enemy's own weapons against them. How many ships did we lose? He asked, though he was almost afraid to hear the answer. Only 3 fighters, sir. But we captured 2 of their cruisers intact. The engineering teams are already working to convert them for our use. Taman allowed himself a small smile. The Confederation had left Earth broken and alone, expecting humans to crumble under the pressure of fighting an impossible enemy. Instead, they had become something harder, something more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The war was far from over. But for the first time in 5 years, Taman believed they might actually win. And when they did, the galaxy would learn. What happened when you abandoned humanity to die? They would learn what Earth had become in the darkness, a world of warriors who trusted no one but themselves. Captain. Kim Dahai stood on the bridge of her warship, watching the final enemy vessel die in the cold darkness of space. The massive Devourer hive ship twisted and burned as its biometal hull cracked apart, spilling glowing fluids into the void. After 20 long years of fighting, the last of their ancient enemy was finally destroyed. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of machines and the breathing of her crew. Every person on the ship had been born during the war or had lived through its entire length. They knew no other life than fighting, winning, and taking what they needed from their enemies. Dahai herself had been just a child when the aliens abandoned Earth. Now she commanded one of humanity's most powerful ships. Captain called Communications Officer Lee Jun-ho from his station near the back of the bridge. His voice carried a note of surprise that made everyone turn to look at him. We're getting transmissions from multiple sources. Long-range signals coming from Confederation ships. Dahai felt her jaw tighten. The aliens who had left Earth to die were finally making contact, now that humanity had done what they claimed was impossible, defeating the Devourers. Completely, the Confederation wanted to talk. Put Admiral Kong on the main screen, she ordered. The large display at the front of the bridge flickered to life, showing the command center of the flagship Retribution. Admiral Kong Hyenwoo appeared, his face a map of the war's cost. Scars ran from his forehead to his chin. His left eye had been replaced with a glowing cybernetic implant that could see through enemy shields. His gray hair was cut short in military fashion, and his uniform bore the symbols of dozens of victories. All fleet commanders maintained defensive positions around our territories, the admiral said without any greeting. His voice was hard and cold, shaped by decades of fighting without help from anyone. We all know what they want now that we've done their job for them. Dahai looked at her tactical display, which showed the current state of human space. Earth was no longer the peaceful blue and green world it had once been. The planet was now surrounded by dozens of military stations, each one armed with weapons that could destroy entire enemy fleets. Huge shipyards floated in orbit, constantly building new warships with technology taken from defeated enemies beyond Earth. Humanity controlled 43 star systems, each one turned into a fortress. Mining stations pulled resources from asteroids while military bases watched for any threat. Every human settlement was ready for war because war was all they had known for 20 years, Dr. Shin. Dudgeon joined the communication from her research station. She had once been a simple scientist studying alien cultures, but the war had changed her too. Now she wore military rank, and her job was to understand enemies so they could be defeated more easily. Admiral, our deep space sensors are picking up massive fleet movements from Confederation core systems, she reported, reading from a tablet covered in alien symbols that humans had learned to understand. Based on their formation patterns, they're not coming to celebrate our victory. They're coming because they're scared of what we've become. They were right to be scared. Dahai looked around her bridge at her crew, and she could see the changes that 20 years had made. Her weapons officer had mechanical arms that could work faster than human flesh. Her pilot had neural implants that let her think at the same speed as their ship's computer. Every person on the bridge was enhanced with technology taken from their enemies. Their ships were no longer simple human designs either. The Indomitable was built with captured Devourer biometal that could repair itself during battle. Its weapons systems learned from each fight and adapted to new enemies. Most importantly, the ship could think and make decisions on its own when needed, like a hunting animal that never stopped looking for prey. Captain Dahai, Admiral Kang said, and she could see that sharp, dangerous smile that had become his trademark. What are your orders when the Confederation ships arrive? Dahai thought about her answer carefully. For 20 years, humanity had fought alone against an enemy that the entire galaxy feared. They had been abandoned, left to die, forgotten by people who claimed to be their allies. But instead of dying, they had become something new, something harder and more dangerous than anyone expected. We listen to what they have to say, Admiral, she replied, her own voice carrying the same cold edge. And then we show them exactly what 20 years of fighting alone has created. Outside the bridge windows, she could see other human warships, taking positions in formation. Each one was crewed by people who had learned the galaxy's most important lesson: never trust anyone else to protect what you love. If you want to survive, you must be strong enough to stand alone. The Confederation had left them broken and expected them to die quietly. They had no idea that humanity had used that abandonment to forge itself into something far more dangerous than the enemies they had been left to face. Now they were about to find out what Earth had become. The conference room aboard Earth's largest orbital station was designed to intimidate visitors. Now the walls were made of dark metal taken from defeated Devourer ships, and the table was carved from a single piece of asteroid rock. When Ambassador Vexstar materialized in the center of the room through the Confederation's teleportation technology, his tall crystal-like body seemed to glow with nervous energy. Admiral Kang Hoyanwu sat at the head of the table, his scarred face showing no emotion as he watched the alien diplomat appear. Around him sat the leaders of humanity's military forces, men and women, who had spent 20 years learning how to win wars that everyone said were impossible to win. Admiral Kang Vexstar began, his voice carrying that musical quality that had once seemed pleasant, but now sounded fake and hollow. The Confederation Council sends its congratulations on your remarkable victory over the Devourer threat. We come today to formally welcome humanity back into the galactic community and discuss. Stop talking. Colonel Park Ji-hoon interrupted, his voice cutting through the alien's speech like a knife. The director of military intelligence was a thin man with cold eyes who had spent years studying enemy communications and learning their secrets. He slid a small data tablet across the smooth table surface until it stopped in front of the ambassador. Vexstar's glowing patches dimmed as he picked up the device and began reading. His large, multifaceted eyes moved quickly across the screen, and the patterns of light under his crystal skin began to flicker in ways that showed his growing panic. These are classified Confederation military documents, Park Ji-hoon said calmly. We took them from your command ships when we captured 3 of your scout fleets last month. They show very interesting information about the time you abandoned us. The alien's hands shook slightly as he continued reading. The documents showed detailed battle plans and strategic assessments from 20 years ago. Most importantly, they proved that the Confederation had other options for fighting the Devourers. Options that would have saved Earth while still protecting the core worlds. You didn't leave us to die because you had no choice, Admiral Hoyanwu said, his voice as cold and empty as deep space. You left us because it was easy, because human lives cost less than alien lives in your calculations. General Im Na-young, who commanded Earth's planetary defenses, touched a control on the table. The room filled with holographic displays showing the current state of human military power. Hundreds of warships patrolled space around dozens of star systems. Massive orbital fortresses surrounded every human world, their weapons trained outward at potential threats. Look at what we've become, she said, gesturing at the displays. We now control more territory than most Confederation member worlds. Our factories can build more ships in a year than your entire alliance built in the last decade. Every human citizen is a trained soldier. Every human world is a fortress. Vexstar tried to regain his diplomatic composure, straightening his tall frame and allowing his natural glow to brighten. You must understand, we faced an impossible situation. The survival of billions of beings across thousands of worlds was at stake. We had to make difficult choices. Difficult choices, Captain Chomanjun repeated, laughing bitterly. He was younger than the others, born during the war, and his entire life had been shaped by fighting and surviving. I mean, you chose which species lived and which species died. And you chose that humans should die. The captain stood up and walked around the table until he was directly in front of the alien ambassador. You talk about galactic civilization like it's something sacred, but whose civilization were you really protecting? Not ours. You were never really part of it, were we? We were just useful until we became inconvenient. Vexstar's diplomatic mask finally cracked completely. His voice rose in pitch, and his crystal skin flashed with angry red patterns. We saved billions of lives. The Devourers would have consumed everything if we had tried to fight them conventionally. Our sacrifice gave us time to prepare proper defenses. Our sacrifice, Admiral Hyanwu repeated slowly, tasting each word like poison. 20 years of fighting alone, a third of our population dead. Our children growing up knowing only war, all so you could hide behind your shields while we did the dying for you? The Admiral stood up and walked to the large window that showed Earth spinning slowly below them. The planet looked different now, covered with orbital installations and defense platforms, scarred by the industries of war, but still beautiful in its own deadly way. You created something new when you abandoned us, he said without turning around. You made us into a species that trusts no one, depends on no one, and destroys threats before they can grow dangerous. You taught us that the only beings we can count on ourselves. He turned back to face the ambassador, and his smile was sharp enough to cut metal. Now you'll answer for what you did. The galaxy will learn that actions have consequences, and if you try to stop us from seeking justice, he gestured at the tactical displays that showed Earth's overwhelming military power. You'll discover what the Devourers learned when they underestimated humanity. The Confederation had abandoned them, expecting gratitude when they returned. Instead, they had created their own worst nightmare. Fleet Admiral Song Yunji stood at the center of her command bridge, watching the tactical displays that showed something impossible happening at the edge of known space. The Retribution, Earth's most powerful warship, hummed with energy as it led a massive human fleet toward what might be humanity's greatest challenge yet? 5 years had passed since the confrontation with the Confederation. 5 years during which Earth had become the galaxy's unofficial police force, whether other species wanted their protection or not. The bridge around Yunji was a mixture of captured alien technology and human engineering, staffed by officers who had never known peace but had learned to create it for others. Admiral Long-Range Sensors are confirming the worst, reported her science officer, studying readings. That made no sense according to known physics. Entire star systems are simply ... disappearing. Not destroyed, not consumed like the Devourers used to do. Just gone, as if they never existed. Youngji nodded grimly. The reports had been coming in for weeks from the galaxy's outer rim. Whole civilizations vanishing without a trace, leaving behind empty space where solar systems should be.
Out.
Whatever was causing this made the Devourers look like a minor problem. Ma'am, Captain Bae Sungmin called from the communications station, his voice carrying a note of irony that everyone on the bridge could hear. We're receiving a priority transmission from Confederation High Command. They're asking for our help. The bridge fell silent, except for the soft sounds of machinery. Every officer present remembered the stories of abandonment, of how these same aliens had left Earth to die 25 years ago. Now they were begging for protection from the species they had tried to sacrifice. Put them through, Yunji ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing a Confederation command center in chaos. Alien officers rushed back and forth, their various species united only by the panic in their movements. The same crystalline being who had once abandoned humanity now appeared on screen, his glowing patches dim with fear. Admiral Song, the alien began, his musical voice cracking with desperation. The Confederation formally requests immediate military assistance from Earth forces. This new threat is beyond our ability to comprehend or resist. Yonji looked at the tactical display showing her fleet's position. Hundreds of human warships surrounded Confederation worlds, ready to defend civilizations that had once written them off as expendable. The irony was not lost on anyone present. Dr. No-Ji-1, Earth's top scientist and advisor on alien technology, joined the conversation from her research station. Her hair was completely gray now, aged by decades of studying enemy technologies and finding ways to turn them against their creators. Admiral, the preliminary data we've gathered suggests this enemy operates on scientific principles we don't understand, she said, consulting her tablet filled with impossible readings. They're not just destroying matter, they're somehow removing it from reality itself. Even with all our captured technology and hybrid systems, this won't be like fighting the Devourers. Yunji studied the sensor data showing the approaching threat. Whatever was coming had already erased dozens of star systems, leaving behind nothing but empty void. The scale of destruction was beyond anything humanity had ever faced, and they had faced the impossible before. You're right, Doctor, she agreed, but that's exactly why they need us. We're the species that finds ways to win fights that can't. Be one. We learn from situations that should kill us. The communication from Confederation High Command grew more desperate by the minute. Admiral Song, will humanity stand with the galaxy in this crisis? We know our past actions have damaged our relationship. But surely Yunji cut off the transmission and looked around her bridge. These officers had been born into war, raised in conflict, and trained to protect Earth above all else. They could easily let the galaxy burn, while humanity remained safe behind their massive defense networks. They could finally get revenge for being abandoned when they needed help most. Signal all fleet commanders, she ordered. Full defensive deployment around Confederation core worlds, and get me a direct line to Earth Command. The screen changed. To show General Quan Min-kyun, the Supreme Commander of all Earth forces, her office was located deep inside Earth's most secure military facility, surrounded by weapons and defenses that could hold off entire fleets. She had been a young lieutenant when the aliens abandoned Earth, and the memory had shaped every decision she made since. Admiral, what's your assessment of the situation? The general asked. EUNG looked out at the stars, where human ships were already moving to protect worlds that had once left them to die alone. Not because we owe them anything, not because they deserve our help. We fight because of what we choose to be. The general nodded slowly. The Terran Protectorate is authorized for full military action. Show them what Earth has become. As the new enemy emerged from the darkness between galaxies, humanity made their choice. They would defend the galaxy, but on their own terms. Never again would any species be abandoned to face extinction alone. The Terran Protectorate would ensure that the strong protected the weak. Regardless of politics or past betrayals, the galaxy would be safe, protected by the very people it had once left broken.